All right, welcome to hour number 2 here on a Tuesday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and joined now by ESPN NFL analyst, former NFL QB Dan Orlovsky, whose segment is brought to you by Ellicott Hotels. Fans, round up your family, friends, or coworkers for a fantastic game day experience at 500 Pearl. Reserve your pack, book your group event today at 500pearlbuffalo.com. Well, Dan, it was an entertaining game on Sunday in a driving rainstorm. Back and forth it went. Fans, obviously, in Buffalo are not very happy with how things turned out as the team heads to the bye at 6-6. I do have to say, from the jump, I was scratching my head about the Eagles' offensive game plan, which was more passing-oriented than anything else, and the Bills were not super impressive against the run coming into this game. I was just very surprised they chose to go to the air, and not only because of the weather, but because of the team they were facing. What about you?
Yeah, I think, one, that's Nick Sirianni's DNA ever since he's gotten to Philly. It really is throw to score, run to win. Like they are a very aggressive football team. They try to jump on you. One, because the strengths of their football team are their ability to run the football and their ability to rush the passer, and so you get the lead, and that's obviously the blueprint. So that's Nick's DNA. Two, if we were just being point blank honest, if you look at who Buffalo is and the strength of their football team, it's Ed. When Ed is on his game, he's as good as anybody in the game right now at defensive tackle. It feels like certainly top 3. So, and then where are they weakest? It's because of some of the injuries the back end. And so you sit there and go, well, we like to throw the ball, and this is where they're weak and vulnerable. So, I wasn't totally surprised by that. And obviously some really good second half adjustments, halftime adjustments by Philadelphia on both sides of the ball are the difference of the game. It's been the difference of the last month or so for them. So credit them and their coaching staff for kind of getting that done, but not shocked with how they started it.
Are there any generalities that you can point to about how the Bills' offense has changed under Joe Brady rather than under Ken Dorsey? Because they certainly look more efficient. They ran the ball really well against the number 1 run defense in the league this last week. Certainly you can go down and get specifics, X's and O's, but what about generally speaking? What's different?
Balance, philosophical balance, I would say, is the understanding of how, plays there's a butterfly effect to plays. There is an attachment to them, and how first quarter stuff impacts third and fourth quarter stuff when it comes to how defenses are going to play certain formations. Can you wear things out? Can you make things easier on your offensive line? I think, the 2 weeks with Joe, my overall, probably my number one thing is he's made life on the offensive line easier. We always attach it to what's he done for Josh. The offensive line's job has been easier just because he's allowed them to play with a little bit more forward lean than backpedaling. He's committed to running the ball just a little bit more. And he's not only just committed to running it, he's been tactical in how he ran it so they could have success doing so. And then in doing that, he's made their job easier when it comes to pass protection because, the defensive line isn't sitting there go, okay, here comes pass like it does often, or Josh is going to be in the same spot. So I do think just the overall philosophical balance is the biggest deal when it comes to how they can play and throughout the course of 4 quarters.
Bills fans are frustrated with Buffalo's record, particularly in one-score games. They're 2-6 this year in those scenarios. I will say last year they were 7-3 in those situations. Is there anything that stands out to you in these one-score games that the Bills find themselves in at the end that for some reason or another they can't get into the garage?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a singular thing. I do think Marcus brought this up on NFL Live a week or two ago. Because of the injuries, the margin of error is slimmer. Those injuries, you feel them on a singular or momentary basis. But, is there a play where, Milano knocks a ball down or makes a stop on third down, or Tre'Davious knocks a ball down or gets a PBU that stops a drive in the second quarter that the team doesn't get 3 points on, or, doesn't get another 30 yards of offense so the field doesn't flip. So, there's that kind of, there's so many instances where they had room for error or margin for error because they were such a talented team. And I do think some of the injuries have minimized that margin for area or hey, we can have 64 great plays and 6 that aren't so good. And we've covered up for it because the 64 were so great. So I think that's probably it. Sometimes, losing 1-score games just is a yearly thing. It's look at Minnesota. 2 years ago, they lost every 1-score game. Last year, they won every 1-score game. What kind of team are they? So usually the in between. So I just think the margin for error is definitely lesser in Buffalo because of some of those injuries. And then so one turnover last year might have not been the difference of a game. This year it is in many ways because that margin for error is less.
One of the things that the Bills drew criticism from, particularly the head coach, Sean McDermott, was like coaching, not to lose, coaching scared. They point to the 20 seconds at the end of the game where you had a timeout and Josh Allen, and maybe, you try a couple of shots and give yourself a chance to get into field goal range. What's your sense of coaching decisions late in these games and about, the narrative that maybe McDermott isn't fit for these close games at the end?
Yeah, I think, listen, he's obviously his track record speaks for itself when it comes to the ability to coach. I mean, he's a darn good coach and he's had a ton of success. I think just specifically, Steve, talking to that situation, really 2 situations stand out for me in the game, coaching-wise. The 20 seconds. I was watching the game with my wife because my wife's a Philly girl, so she was pissed at me all game because I wanted Buffalo to win because obviously I'm a fan of Josh and the team, and when they're good, life is good in the NFL. When they got the ball, when Philly, made that kick or whatever to tie it, I told her, I was like, trust me, this is not over just yet. They need one play, and that kid can make it. And so I was very surprised because if you think about it like this, if you drop back and you are overly aggressive and you take a shot, whether it's you're trying to hit a 20-yard in, 30-yard in, or you're trying to hit a go ball, that might take 8 or 9 seconds. Let's say it's incomplete. Let's call it again. Like, is there a potential bad that can happen? Of course, but we can't live in that world. You had every right to win that game. If you don't hit it, we call it again. We still have our timeout. We hit it. Now it becomes a conversation. Okay, you pop your timeout more than likely and you're out of bounds. And it's like, are we in field goal range? Do we have Hail Mary opportunity? Do we need 6 more yards? Because if so, we can get 6 more yards type of thing. So I do think that was a missed opportunity. But Steve, for bigger for me, man, is that final drive that led into overtime. And I talked about this a lot yesterday. The ball was on the left hash on first down. Philadelphia went 5 straight completions into the boundary. You know this. Like 5 straight completions into the boundary. Never once did Buffalo scheme-wise take the boundary away and force the ball to go to the field, force the harder throw, force the longer throw, force more time to potentially get off the clock because guys aren't close enough to the sidelines. So that for me was the one situation in that game that I sat there and said, offensively, when we start a 2-minute drill, we've got a couple things that are like our objectives, our goals. And it's like, one is get the easiest and shortest completion. 2, get out of bounds. I felt like Buffalo gifted that stuff to Philadelphia. That would probably be my biggest gripe when it comes to that management of the game.
Let's spin it forward and look post-bye here. As you probably already know, the Bills have the toughest remaining strength of schedule. It starts in Kansas City with the Chiefs. The Bills are 6-0 after the bye under Sean McDermott, for whatever that's worth. This is the first time, however, they are post-bye on the road, and they're in a pretty tough spot. They've won there before in the regular season. We know that. But looking at the next couple in particular, just your thoughts on what lies ahead for this team, the way it's playing as of right now.
You got to get one of the next 2. You get one of the next 2, week 18 is going to be for a chance to get to the playoffs. I said this yesterday, no one's going to want Josh in either. So one of the next two, Kansas City or Dallas. Okay, so Kansas City. I think that this defense in Buffalo, with the way that they've played in spurts, even with some of the injuries, can keep them in that football game. Okay. That game is going to come down to, the Kansas City game will come down to one thing: how well Josh executes versus all the different pressures that Steve Spagnuolo is going to bring. And that's kind of been his DNA, but he's awesome at it. Like he's awesome at it. And they kept Philadelphia's offense in check for a great majority of that game. And so how willing and ready he's going to be for some of those situations. And then for the Dallas game, the Dallas game will be about first down. Like if you're not good on first down against Dallas's defense, I don't care who you are. They'll bum rush you, because 11 is just, Micah Parsons is just a game wrecker. But if they can find a way to get one of the next two, I said this to our group today, week 18 will be for a playoff spot. I firmly believe. Now it's like college football. You might need a little help here or there, Indy or Houston or, Cleveland falling off, potentially Cincinnati, but they got to find a way to get one of the next two. Real quick, guys, I just want to put this into context, because I've part of me feels like personal about, not personal, but I've seen a lot of stuff like get said about Josh, and this, whatnot, and I got dear friends that have their opinions on Josh. Just to put into context, I got this number the other day about Josh's performance on Sunday, so everyone can kind of get into the context of it. So Josh on third downs on Sunday was 12 and 19 on third and medium plus. So 3rd and 6 yards or plus, they were 12 of 19. He was 12 and 19. That's the best a quarterback's been in over 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And six of those were 3rd and 7 or more.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, he was unbelievable on third down, and I think one of the things that fans here in Buffalo have noticed is his willingness to just pull it down and get the first down with his legs, slide for it. You'll see him at the end of this game, and I noticed it. It was a rainy, muddy day. He didn't finish. He finished, and he was covered from head to toe in grass stains. The guy was guy. That's the way he plays. And I made this statement as well. I mean, you watch all these, and I don't know, just Jalen Hurts, great. He's a great player, and he's got that it factor of he elevates guys, and Mahomes, and the Chiefs are kind of struggling to get it back on track this year, but still playing extremely good. Don't look like the old Chiefs, but they still are winning games, and Mahomes is the same way. Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, go down the list. I said this yesterday, none of them. Nobody is playing any position in the league better than Josh Allen's playing his spot this year. And I know they're 6-6, but this guy has played at a level, and you can look at the turnovers too. If you slice the turnovers up, Josh is leading the league in touchdowns. Mahomes has got a bunch of turnovers. Dak's got a bunch of turnovers. These guys are all turning it over because they got to. They got to put the ball at risk. It's the way the league is.
Yeah.
Josh is not going to win the MVP because of where the Bills are right at this moment. They're 6-6, and you just don't give the MVP to a quarterback of a 6-6 club. But nobody is playing any better than this guy's playing right now.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. I agree. And in the conversation, I did this about the interceptions a couple weeks ago when saying, like, hey, sometimes you just have 4 or 5 or 6 in a year that just don't go your way. Ball gets tipped at the line of scrimmage or goes through hands, or defender gets a pinky on it, and all of a sudden everyone. So this guy's a turnover machine or whatnot. We have to be honest about kind of what he is doing and how he is doing it. And you know what, Steve? Like, I honestly believe this. He wins on Sunday. If Jake Elliott doesn't hit an unbelievable kick, or Jalen Hurts doesn't become, the Terminator for the last 2 drives, I honestly believe he would be very much so at the top of MVP lists. So now that's in the past. They lost, obviously, but I told you guys a couple minutes ago, like, hey, they got to find a way to win one of the next 2. If they get that performance in one of their next 2, they'll win one of them.
Yeah. Why do you? I mean, Dan, you're kind of a part of the national landscape on this league. Why do you think that narrative is so pervasive on Josh? Is it because he's on national television a lot and he's had some stinkers? Why is it so pervasive? Because, as you said, I mean, there are other quarterbacks who are pretty close in terms of total turnovers to Josh. Josh still leads the league. We know that. He's led the league since he's been in the league. We understand all that, but nobody seems to get the same kind of pervasive criticism that he does. Why do you think that is on a national level?
Yeah, because it's 25 years ago. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, not 25, 20 years ago, the only quarterback that was good in the NFL was Tom Brady. Everyone else sucked, or everyone else was hated on, or everyone else was nitpicked. Right now, it's Patrick. Patrick's the only good quarterback in the NFL, and everybody else sucks in some capacity. Honestly, guys, I've been victim of this. I've done this. I've been kind of like overly critical of other quarterbacks. Dak Prescott is one of them where I've been like, well, so if it's almost like if you're not Patrick Mahomes, you're not good. And people just wait for the moment when you have a slip up, which is going to happen because that's happened in sports and the other teams get paid. So I don't know if it's just Josh though, guys. I don't like. I hear tons of hate that Jalen Hurts sucks and Lamar Jackson sucks and Josh Allen sucks and Joe Burrow's a product of the people around him. These guys are unbelievable players. I mean, Dak Prescott sucks. Dak's playing awesome this year. So I think it's just a little bit of the kind of the narrative culture. Josh maybe being the guy that's kind of been all over TV, I guess, over the last year and Madden cover and all that. He's a very easy target as well.
Dan, thanks as always. We'll catch up with you after the bye week, sir. Thanks for the
Dan.
time.
Be well, guys.